Speaker, and recognize member from Saanich South.
Thank you. I take my place in this debate, and on the record, I'd like to say that Bill 24 is the most disgusting piece of legislation I've ever seen in this legislature. This minister has had his turn to speak, and now it's my turn to speak. Last summer, when the Minister of the Core Review was appointed and the Minister of Agriculture at the time was appointed, I knew that we were heading for an agricultural disaster in this province. I was appointed to the Finance Committee, Mr. Speaker, and at one point, something sneaky happened. And the Minister of the Core Review had directed people to give their input on the Core Review on the Agricultural Land Reserve to the Finance Committee. That was not appropriate, and it also took everyone by surprise, everyone on the committee, including the chair. That was the beginning of this sneaky, deceitful legislation that has left the people of BC out of the conversation. I have never been so angry. And the day it was tabled in this House, I went home and I wrote to the people who follow me in BC, which is in every corner of this province, not just in rural BC. This minister claims that he is the only one who is authentically connected to agriculture, that is the only authentic farmer in this House. I came into this House because of agriculture. And this legislation is pathetic. And any person in this chamber who stands up to support this, anybody in this chamber who supports this legislation is betraying the people of British Columbia. There are a lot of people in this House that are connected to agriculture, a lot of them. And the other commonality is that everyone in this House eats. We are all connected to agriculture 3 times a day. When I went home after this legislation was tabled, and I have to tell you, that was one of the worst days I have ever stayed in this legislature. And I wrote this. The minister across the way is saying it's hard to listen to this. Well, she can leave the chamber if she would like, if it's too hard to hear the truth. I wrote this. Yesterday, as the ALR legislation was tabled, I felt immediate rage. I became someone I rarely am inside this chamber. I yelled at the Minister of the Core Review. I yelled at every government MLA that had ever stood in that chamber proclaiming their love for agriculture. I challenged them to stand up against this legislation. I don't think my own colleagues had ever seen me so agitated or angry. I continued to feel this rage as I walked down the corridors, and I heard some of the media saying things like, "It doesn't seem as bad as the NDP said it would be." Words like benign were thrown around. I got home last night and a deep sadness took hold. I felt utterly defeated and hopeless. The enormity of this legislation is a weight that I can hardly grapple with. This morning when I woke, I felt my fight coming back, but it was muted by the paralyzing feeling that it was too late, and this was a done deal. I want to feel rage, and I want everybody in British Columbia to feel rage. And what hurts my soul the most is that I fear that we won't see the rage we need to stop the changes. If you believe in the Agricultural Land Reserve, the time for rage is now. It is a hideous attack on the public trust. And when I posted this on social media, I heard and I saw the rage that I didn't expect. This legislation has enraged British Columbia. Not only is it bad legislation, but the way that it was brought in, it's unforgivable. When we had a new Minister of Agriculture appointed, he promised that there would be consultation that we hadn't had. He promised that it would be fair, and he promised that everything would be on the table, including pulling this legislation. Pulling the legislation is the only option. because the way that this has progressed is betrayal. The people of British Columbia want to have a say. They want to have a say. And you know, let's figure out how we got to this point. How on earth have we gotten to the point where a Minister of Core Review is in charge of the Agricultural Land Reserve and in charge of agriculture in this province? How did we get there? You know, not too many years ago when I was the agriculture critic, the Auditor General came out with a report. And the Auditor General said that we aren't supporting agriculture in this province or the Land Commission in a way that it will allow it to fill its mandate. And its mandate was to protect agricultural land, and it was to promote agriculture. Very soon after that, a report came out from the chair of the Agricultural Land Commission. This government held it for a year before releasing it. But that report confirmed a lot of the things that the Auditor General said, and also laid out some of the things that were improvements for the Agricultural Land Commission. The chair is a very well-respected person in the agriculture community. He did this report by talking to people in the agricultural community. We have a lot of people in this province who believe in agriculture. I would say that the number is up to 85% of people who support the Agricultural Land Reserve. It's been in place for 40 years. It reflects our values as British Columbians. And now we see that it has a chance to be destroyed. When the Agricultural Land Commission chair's report was tabled, it was an eye-opener because we saw how badly supported the Agricultural Land Commission was and how good of a job they were doing anyway. If you want to talk about Zone 1 and Zone 2 and what agricultural land is better than others, this government, by underfunding the commission, has allowed prime agricultural land in Zone 1 to be destroyed because they have no policy on soil dumping in the Lower Mainland, and that land is turning into land that you can't farm on anymore. So don't talk to me about Zone 1 and Zone 2 and soil classifications. This government is responsible for destroying much of the Prime 1 land that has soil and clay and construction fill on top of it right now. Not just a couple loads. In Saanich, we had 10,000 loads of construction fill put on a farm. Once that commission's report, the chair's report was tabled and looked at, not very long after that, did we see sort of an update on, of what the chair and the commission had been doing since that report. Some money came from this government, and I'm not going to stand here and not give you credit, this government credit for that. They did give the commission some more money. They had taken a bunch away previously, but they did give them some money. And what was that money used for? It was used for important things like updating the map system, digitalizing the map system and the file system of the Agricultural Land Commission. That was good work, and that's work that the chair laid out that was going to be done to strengthen the commission. They were also conducting a boundary review. They were conducting a boundary review. They were doing that work. Then, all of a sudden, in the middle of it, the Minister of the Core Review decides that it needs a third review, and we need to destroy it. There is nothing that this minister can tell me that will allow me to believe that his intent with this legislation is to strengthen the Agricultural Land Reserve. Everything that he has done so far proves to me that he's in the business of destroying it. He can rattle off letters just as much as we can rattle off letters, because I can tell you on this side of the House, we have received thousands of letters. I get copied on the same letters the minister receives, so I know how many people have responded. And a lot of them, Mr. Chair, have responded because I've pleaded with people to tell the minister their feelings. This is not just ranchers in the Kootenays that support the minister. Ranchers in the Kootenays support the Agricultural Land Reserve the way it was. Not what, 2 zones, 1 zone. The BC Cattlemen's Association is leery of this legislation. The BC Agriculture Council believes that this could lead to destruction of agriculture in BC. There is many groups that are speaking out, and it's falling on deaf ears on the other side of the House. And if this government doesn't wake up, what the result of this will be that we lose our opportunity for food-growing lands that we're going to need in the future. 90% of the agricultural land reserve is now in Zone 2. The highest and best use for agriculture. Under the Agricultural Land Reserve and the Commission, the highest and best use is supposed to be for agriculture, not for something else, not for supporting the oil and gas industry, not for a rodeo. It's supposed to be about growing food, Mr. Speaker. You know, the minister goes on to say that somebody wasn't able to make a living growing 20 acres of hay. Agriculture has changed in the last 20 years. And I've noticed that members on the other side continually like to say that young people don't want to get into farming anymore. That's a problem. Well, you know what? I know a ton of young people who want to get into farming, but farming looks a little bit different, and it's reflecting what consumers want, and that's about modernizing agriculture. It's about supporting agriculture. It's about things like the Local Food Act. It's not about destroying the agricultural land reserve because the old way of doing business doesn't work. It's about putting policies in place that make agriculture work, not taking away the land that you can do that on. I have never been so angry standing on this side of the House because I feel like the Minister of the Core Review has made a decision for future generations that is going to be devastating. And I want the members on the other side of the House to stand proudly with the Agricultural Land Reserve. If you don't want to stand with us, that's fine. Stand on your own and be loyal to the values of British Columbia. British Columbia wants the Agricultural Land Reserve to be intact. You know, what's interesting about this legislation is that it is about, the government's tried to frame it in helping agriculture. They're pushing it towards the agriculture community. The ranchers, some ranchers in the minister's riding want to see the Agricultural Land Reserve destroyed. But there's another segment of the population that has been very vocal, and the minister can discount them because they live in the Lower Mainland, but it's the consumers of this province who want to support agriculture. They want BC products. So they might live in the Lower Mainland, but they also eat 3 times a day. And you can consider the Lower Mainland like a giant stomach of this province, and they support the people in the rural areas producing the food, and they want them to do that. They appreciate it. There is a group of chefs right now and restaurant owners that are trying to figure out how to stop this legislation because their business plans depend on it. Their business plans depend on the Agricultural Land Reserve, Mr. Speaker. What do you say to them? That they don't count? Well, they do, because they're part of our economy, and they are part of supporting farmers. You know, if you look up in the Kootenay area, the Peace area, it's part of a part of BC that grows different things than the island or the Sunshine Coast. But what it makes up is a provincial agriculture component. We have the ability to grow whatever we want in every region if we add it up. The Peace can grow grain. We know that, and it does. But it also can finish cattle up there. And if this government had any foresight, they'd support the meat regulations and put in some slaughterhouses up there so that we could do some value-added cattle ranching. That's how you solve problems in agriculture. We all know it's about value-added. Where's the government here? Where's the government? No, they've decided that can't do that. Instead, we're going to destroy the Agricultural Land Reserve. They've already opted out. Well, BC doesn't want to opt out of agriculture. BC wants to opt in, and they are willing to step up and support agriculture more than ever. This is the moment for agriculture in British Columbia, Mr. Speaker. This is the moment. This is not the moment to take away our potential. You know, the Minister of the Core Review tries to imply that on the island, as a farmer, I might not have the credibility to talk about agriculture. He likes to imply that because I don't come from a family of 4 generations of farmers, that I don't have, I'm not authentic when I talk about it. I can tell you with every bone in my body, the reason I am in this legislature is because of agriculture, it's because of food security, and it's because of sustainability. And when I hear legislation coming forward that threatens everything I believe in, it makes me very angry. It's unforgivable. The minister liked to read out letters today about constituents from different areas of British Columbia. Well, I have a letter from someone from Cranbrook. That minister represents Cranbrook, I believe. The proposed changes of Bill 24 will have an irreversible negative consequence for agricultural operations in the East Kootenays. As an ALR farmland owner in the East Kootenays, my opinion qualifies. Hands off the ALR. In recent years, the ALC has been making positive changes for ranching and farming operations in the East Kootenays. Leave the ALC alone and let it continue doing its job. Stop Bill 24. There's many letters like this coming out of the Kootenays, the East Kootenays. There's probably just as many, I would say, if not way more, people that are opposed to Bill 24 in that minister's constituency than are supporting it. And I think that's a fact. And I'd like to see the numbers from that side of the House. Let's start doing a tally. How many people support this bill and how many don't? I would say the noes have it.
Let's have a free vote.
Yeah, that's right. You know, it's sad that we have to stand here and defend something like this. My colleagues and I will spend the next 2 weeks trying to convince the members on that side of the House that this is important and it's the wrong direction. And we will bring in every letter we can find, and we will encourage every constituent in British Columbia to try and get through to this government. After today's display, the arrogance of the Minister of the Core Review, I have a feeling this is going to be an uphill battle. But I have told my constituents that this is a hill that I will die on because I believe in it that strongly, and my colleagues feel the same way. This is our legislation. You know, it's really appropriate that the Minister of the Core Review left because I have, oh, sorry, okay, I withdraw that remark. I withdraw that remark. I think it's a shame that all ministers may not be present in this chamber to listen to what I have to say. Because although some might find it completely annoying, others might listen and they might hear what I'm trying to say. This is the only chance I have to express to you how important it is that you do not support this legislation, that you do not support Bill 24. You know, I am a farmer. That's my background. I was never asked what I felt about Bill 24. I was never consulted. And I know how the rest of the people in British Columbia feel. Because if you got the letters that I've been receiving and the photos that the farmers have been sending from Zone 2 and Zone 1, standing proudly on their farms, asking the government, begging the government to kill Bill 24, if you actually took a moment to look at those photos, behind those farmers are fields of abundance in every zone. They are producing food. They are producing food for the people of this province. When did that become irrelevant to this government? As far as I'm concerned, these are heroes. These are heroes in our province, producing food for us. Ask the chefs how they feel about farmers. Every chef needs a farmer these days. You know, I have a friend who has been farming for about 20 years, and he said back in the day, he'd go into a bar and he'd tell the girls that he was a farmer, and it was pretty much a conversation stopper. Now he goes in and he talks about farming, and the girls really like it. All of a sudden, it's a pretty awesome thing to be doing. This is the moment for agriculture. And I can't plead with you enough to reconsider this legislation. It's not about the New Democrats. It's not about the Independents. It's not about the Green Party. It's about British Columbia and how we feel as people of this province about our agricultural land reserve. It has been with us for 40 years. Please do not take it away. Thank you.